Are there any immediate questions out there? Because I'll start with a question. I think what's interesting to me, I think, from both of the presentations, you know, I look at the time lapse that you looked at, Matt, and I think to myself, from our youngest generation of the Indigenous architects groups, what do you imagine, what would you like to see in the next 150 years in Indigenous design to happen?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. You know what I really want to see? And it goes back to that diagram that we started. It's by no means complete. You know, there's a lot of missing pieces. And I know that every year that we move forward, we're now in 2018, that was done in 2017. Every year there's going to be 2 more degrees of new buildings done by Indigenous architects, and then also Indigenous architects graduating from either design schools or architecture schools. And I think that's really the key, is to kind of increase the masses that there are.
Awesome. Any question? I'll open it up for questions. If not, I've got a ton of questions for these two. I could drill them further. But I see a question over here.
Hello. Whoa. Thank you very much. That was just beautifully edifying, and so I'm still kind of spinning on everything that you folks were presenting. I have two themes I'd like to just get comment on. One relates to sustainability, and I'm firmly of the conviction that we're not going to achieve a sustainable culture here without the participation and leadership of Indigenous peoples, and obviously that's a big design challenge and opportunity, so I'd love to hear something on that. And the other thing is how do you see the space of reconciliation from a design point of view and the way that might unfold? Thank you.
Go ahead.
The second one, reconciliation, I know that is totally an English term of what we're trying to approach, but I know there are a lot of people in our culture that aren't even close to doing that. And there's a timeline that we have to respect with our people and where they are in their journey. Like Douglas said, we all have our specific journey, and you can't enforce these ideas on anybody. And if someone's strong, willing, and they got to that level of forgiveness and working forward with the positivity, then you can do that. But other than that, it's not part of us to force someone to go into that stage.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's, time is the thing that heals all, and it took how long to get into this mess? It's going to take that long, if not longer, to get out of it. And it's about education, I think. And that education isn't starting with people that are in their 50s and 60s. It's starting with children. And growing that understanding of what Indigenous people are and what they've contributed to North America and where they're going and all these things. I think that it's going to take a long time to do that, so you can't rush that process. Your first question about the social aspects, or, I'm LEED accredited. I've been teaching LEED for 6 years. And LEED has its limitations. We always talk about the things that it can do, but really it's just trying to kickstart people. I think we need to go way beyond that, and that's where regenerative or restorative design comes into play, where you're taking into account social aspects and social considerations for whatever user groups involved, and that's part of the consultation and in-depth consultation, not just we're here in and out, but spending time there, spending time with people and figuring out how's the best way to to serve them. You know, this idea about the housing crisis, and so many architects and design students have tried to tackle this crisis. And really, for me, it's about going into each community that needs it and asking, you know, how do you want to fix this? Give it back to them to have in their hands to lead us on how to fix it. Because there's not one answer to those things. So very complex, both of those things to get through.
Thank you. Question?
Hi. I'm just wondering, what's your experience or your thoughts or comments on co-creation? Just recognizing what some people feel about the treaties as a nation-to-nation kind of relationship.
Co-creation is what we should be doing. We should be working individually with each nation. And that's the thing that I don't like about this, you know, in this word Indigenous. It groups everyone into this same melting pot. You know, it's a little bit more respectful in some ways, but it's so far away from where we should be. You know, we should be addressing nations by nations just like we honor the land that they're on. Whenever we speak about these things, we should be honoring them, but when we speak about them specifically. So if we're working with a specific nation, then it's very much about that relationship and working together to build. It's the only way.
I have a question. I'm right here. I'll just stand.
There we go. It's hard to see. You can see us, but it's hard to see
Yeah,
you.
sorry. Destiny, we loved your presentation. We were, or not Destiny, but Cheyenne, sorry.
Destiny is our stage name. Just so you know. We were going to do.
I've linked you
Do
together.
some interpretive dance, but then.
I was just talking with Cheyenne last week with Destiny. So, sorry about that, Cheyenne. What I wanted to ask is, I've asked Wanda this before. I think one thing that I'm always struggling with as an Indigenous person, so this is my question to you, is my struggle. How First Nations people have lived in the land so lightly, moving from place to place, traveling location to location for hundreds and thousands of years. And when we're looking at architecture today, it's very stable and organized and projected to last for a very long time. And I think I saw you guys both hinting at it in your presentation in multiple different ways, but how do you bring those two world visions together, those two world views about being portable, expandable, taking ideas about the elements and allowing the building to weather over time or to take influence from the environment? How do you incorporate that into the work that you do?
I think you have your elders, you have your youth, and you have your objective of where you're trying to put the project. But at the same time, you're thinking of the building as a living thing, and you give it a spirit with the people you're interacting with and building the project with. And those people are investing their ideas, their emotions and energy. And if this building is to last maybe 20, 50 years, these people who are existing in it, because it's not just a form, it's not a form, it's like the architecture is the spirit of who's involved. And then if you have that, then the building could be lasting that many years, but if it's so part of them, then they will invest into it, rebuild it, and it will live with them the same way in the materials you choose. And I think that has to run parallel, or else the building could just be stagnant and it won't mean anything. But if it's in the community, they'll invest time to rebuild it or to fix it and have it.
We're modern Indians, you know, and I don't think that we can be stuck in the mindset that we have to live in a teepee to be or practice our culture. We should be using modern materials. You know, we would be if you took an Indian from 500 years ago and you threw him into a Home Depot, he's not going to go pick out the wood. He's going to go pick out something that's so advanced, lightweight, and modern that he can use it in such an interesting way and build something out of it. He'll play with it and make something, or she'll play with it and make something, you know? I don't think we can we can linger or get stuck in the past too long. I think we really need to be forward thinking and forward thinking about how our culture fits in to this modern world.
And I think we have one last question that we can fit in before I'll bring Graham up, and then I think we'll have the reception will begin, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll make this quick so we can go to the reception. Yeah, first off, thanks for the presentation. It didn't really feel like you were talking down to us or anything, if that makes you feel better. So yeah, it was a nice conversation. And this is just on the consultation process that perhaps you went through with building your buildings. I'm just wondering how you approached that. Was it, did you get representatives from each community that you were looking at, or was it more directed to a small community, or did you just open it to the public and have anyone who wished to come in to participate in this creation?
For me, consultation changes from place to place, whether you're working on reserve, off reserve, Indigenous, not Indigenous. That process shouldn't be written down in a book. Now you do this, now you do this, now you do this, there you're done, right? That is very much about who you're working with, and it changes. Sorry to be so vague about that, but it does change. It can include community members. It can be very specific about, which department is going in there. It could be 3 sessions. It could be 150 sessions. It all depends on a bunch of different factors, but it's a very fluid process, and I think that it needs to be, because not every nation is the same, not every person is the same, not every board is the same, right? So that consultation process can travel across Indigenous and non-Indigenous ways of dealing with design.
All right. Any other last comments? All right, with that, I want to give our 2 panelists a big round of applause. Thank you.